keeping things under wraps, whatever it might be, now is the time to bring it. Maverick as the first ban. For anyone that's joining us for this map and didn't catch map number 1, the all chat's popping between these two. There's good vibes. There's good vibes all around.
100%. And that's this roster. And we sort of said it before that both these teams have pretty good mentalities when it comes to things going away from them or bringing it in. Sure, you can still get in your own head in how you're playing, and sometimes you're not on the server with your hands, but your head and your heart is a very different story, and it was a problem for Rogue once upon a time. CYCLOPS have been so happy to play Siege anytime I've ever seen them. They love getting into games, they love the competitiveness, and they love matching the fire with the fire and seeing how they can push it. Rogue have had downs. They've got a wonderful support staff behind them, obviously. Bernadette is their mental coach and helps them build a better structure, was brought in around 6 months ago, I think, roughly, and she's really helped sort of bring them together. She's here as well, working alongside the team, alongside obviously Meepy, and the sort of structure that they have there, and it's just great to see a team that, you know, as I said before, they suffered the worst after suffering the best. They went from being undefeated to being entirely defeated with just a split difference. It was like a month break and suddenly they couldn't beat anybody.
Sometimes when you get to the top, it attracts that level of attention, doesn't it? And you really have to start fighting back against, well, everybody knows how we play now. Everyone's really focusing on beating us because we've set that new standard, and then everybody else catches up to that standard, and it's now back on someone else to reset it again. And that's kind of the sicklier nature of progression almost sometimes between regions. Rogue here looking to make this a swift 2-0, and by all accounts, they've got a good opportunity to do so. Starting off here on Clubhouse on that defender side. The bans coming in. We've got the Maverick removed, Thatcher removed, of course, Valkyrie no longer to be seen, and Cade to round things out. So, by all accounts, a very standard set of bans. Nothing really unusual there.
Have you
Attackers are moving out to locate
ever seen a man drop shot with a shield?
Well, this is what we were talking about previously, isn't it?
Because you're gonna see it.
This is where the speed starts to come in. Anaton's a terrifying prospect to go up against. Osa was sort of teased and brought and tried and attempted on Oregon, but it wasn't really ever successful. Whereas now we go back to Old Faithful.
The Monty in the hands of Anaton, when played previously on the grandest stage, took a lot of people by surprise. The players inside the server and then people at home, when he will actively drop shot with the Monty, to the point where a lot of people went back to the server and tried it out, and it does bring you a surprising balance of accuracy. There was something to the madness, a little bit of magic that was that consistent surprise. It's not going to be as surprising this time. If you go up against them, you expect, especially on Clubhouse, to see a Monty, because Monty, to be fair, is brought by a lot of teams on Club to try and get control up here of the rafters. You can sort of just gangplank your way all the way through and keep battling and bolstering yourself. It's going to get opened up. He's going to tease the door, maybe some explosives, and there it is. He says hello, crying, gives the ping, but there's not much else they can do apart from have the cover from aces there, and they got to sit and wait and see how much time they can bat out.
And that's what it becomes about. It becomes about how well supported is Anaton and how much of this time is he going to be able to actually make use of, because for all intents and purposes, if the Monty stood there, it isn't actually doing anything unless there's anybody backing that up. We see Gatorada now coming into the fray, and it's going to be Irrigator to pick up that first. Aces to fall, nade in hand, but there's going to be plenty of catching utility there on that catwalk. We see ADSs and Wamai discs.
Rips is down in oil. He's waiting to see if he can catch a sneaky edge. It's the smoke canisters, though. They're going to be the first push from Prano. They're sort of realizing that there's a huge amount of pressure coming from Anaton. It's down to the rest of the CAG players to see if they can crack open this wall, force the smoke further away so they cannot help and support that Jaeger up on the rafters. If they can isolate that player, they can get him. They can pinch him out, and there's a bit of the movement, but with Rips underneath, he's not as alone as they might think. Monty, he's sort of dabbling. I think he's more concerned about a swing round from the top. It's not entirely covered, but look, 40 seconds. Whatever the rest of CAG do, there's the reveal of the player down underneath, and they've got to start doing it a little bit sharper. Is a rotation coming through. Irrigator's going to see if they can go underneath, and there's the pickup. The Malusi's caught out. There's the cover down on Rips, 30 seconds. Cryin goes for the knife, can't get it. That's a shield crouch down, not quite the drop shot, but with a single reveal, there's a player wide, and There's the drop shot. It does a lot of damage, but Leon survives, able to bite back through the softer spray. Down red, and a canister doesn't quite get its way all the way in. It's on the door court. Nanaton needs to go for a hot hop. It sprays, and Suzu that finally finds the isolation. The diffuser is inside the site. 5 seconds. Prano, well, he's in and amongst 4 players, and CYCLOPS pull it out.
CYCLOPS did a great job there of displaying a lot of patience. We were talking about wasting time and if that Monty was really providing a lot of effect, but relaxing into it and just knowing that you've got that pressure. It's almost like a tap. You can turn it on whenever you want a bit of water. You can turn that pressure on as soon as you want Anaton to push up that catwalk, because realistically, what's Cryan able to do? Like, he can't do anything. He's stuck there on the catwalk and there's no real place to hide. So that was something that was really influential. Obviously, the breach getting opened when it did. Typically, we criticize teams that don't open the breach in the first half of the round or the first 50 seconds or the first 2 minutes, whatever your metric is. That breach got open at like 55 seconds. And it was the perfect time because that's when the panic set in. Prano then has to play deep from the top of cache stairs. It gives a lot less space for those defenders to work in. Whereas if you give them that option earlier, they're going to come up with solutions around that. They're going to go underneath. They're going to make flanks. They're going to throw utility from deep. That wasn't an option. And ultimately, CYCLOPS were able to just choke them out from there. Unfortunate from Rips on the rotation. I think he could have done a little bit more. Got caught out shooting the drone, gave the game away. Was there anyone sat on the drone at the time? Had it lit up? These are questions that we don't know the answer to. And it wasn't the only reason that the round was lost, but it was definitely a contributing factor. And Rogue, well, they go downstairs, tail sort of between the legs.
Before we potentially see more of the Monty, I think that is the perfect example of what a Monty can do. That's a great Monty player. Do you know how you know a great Monty player? It's because you as a viewer go, I'm kind of frustrated imagining what it would be like if I was up against this Monty player right now.
I'm angry.
You get because it's that good. Everything is played perfectly. There's never a moment. There's always this creeping pressure, and that is the sign of watching a great Monty player. As you yourself get a little bit of that nervous flashbacks of what it's like suffering against the side of it. Here, though, it's a slightly different approach, a slightly different site. You'll commonly see a drive of a Monty down via dirt in most teams' hands, but this isn't most teams with a Monty, so I'll say that as one way to do it. It doesn't mean it is the way to do it. Hopped up on a hatch here. Are they going to be able to get a catch? There is a spray through. They hoped that they were going to place that from somewhere else, and it was a gamble and a gambit, but it's drawn some time and attention, and that is the role of Aroma on the top floor on a basement hold.
-1 breach and charge. Not going to be the end of the world by any stretch, but Leon can still play inside of logistics, still aggress onto that hatch. Hibana now going to be deployed, and it's going to be more difficult for Leon to know exactly where they are, so just going to dip himself back off. But of course on the Vigil, can try and play that catch me if you can game of activating the cloak and seeing if he can waste any drones.
Anaton, in the meantime, has decided to drive up dirt. Sure, there might be somebody else there, but I'm a Monty, and I've got things to do, which is try and put pressure onto the site itself. And the C4s that are prepped, but the call in the audio is massive. The smoke canisters, you're going to hope that they're held on for as long as possible, especially as you've got Rips playing the Legion. A big pickup and blow potentially to a Monty that tries to make its way through. You can see them, but you stop by them unless you have it ticking away on your leg. A big problem for somebody like Anaton who wants to just keep driving in. There's also this, an Oryx, and he just goes in for a freebie, picked up and locked out. There it was. An entire perfect removal of a player and an operator. You've got a Monty. These are the exterminators you call in, all 3 of them. They are there for a purpose, and it is to stop that mountain, because as soon as it falls, it is so much easier to get to the top and plant a flag that says this one was a rogue round.
And you know that Rogue have got these tricks of dealing with it. Aces was waiting in that position for the entirety of the round. That was his only job, was to knock Monty back onto the floor. It isn't over yet, though. There's still an advantage here for CYCLOPS. I say that as Aces picks himself up one more. I mean, I guess he got the assist onto the first, but we can give him some credit anyway. He did a lot of the hard yards in there for that one. Not a lot of time remaining, 25 seconds, and we've now got Leon inside of Kitchen. Again, a player that's unaccounted for. Suzu going to try and figure out a way to hop on in, can choose to drop into stock, but ultimately, whichever way you go, you are likely going to meet your end here, and it doesn't really matter. It's kind of pick your poison time. Leon, a little bit of outside to in, drops the diffuser, doesn't need to further drop the hatch. Anything can happen now on the site, and as long as Leon keeps control of that kit, he is going to be just fine. Black Ray there as the last player alive, not in position to do anything about it, and Rogue grab one back.
Well, it came down to the time, but it came down to a roam play. And as I said at the beginning, that is the role of that player on the top floor, especially in the hands of a Vigil. But if you can do a play like that, well, that's the role of any great player in that sort of situation. They pull a round back after it had been a bit back and forth. Obviously, with the Monty going down, as I said, it heralded a bit of a result, but it came down to the tenacity of CYCLOPS to keep that pressure hot. They kept themselves driving in. It's a bit of a static reliance, and I guess they have the assumption now that Monty might be there every single round to reveal it and maybe pick away from it if you really want to be creative. And, well, I guess we'll see if they decide to have a response. The Flores is the playoff, the swap between two different intel styles here as Mira steps up inside Jim, and we have seen Rogue play a fantastic mirror hold here against Jacuzzi.
Mirror and Gym and Bedroom, it's a match made in heaven, isn't it? It is the site that you think of when you think about Mirror on this map. There are so many ways that you can try and play it. Either you want to try and hold aggressively onto the Jacuzzi wall, play in a mirror window where Prano's reinforcing now into the bathroom, leave that left-hand panel soft, couple of shot holes through there, whether you want to make it as a rotation or you want to just make it as a couple of lines of sight. You can really choose, it doesn't matter. You can still shoot through that soft wall regardless. Second, it's a little bit more loose, it's a little bit more fast. You can play this second mirror window wherever you like. A popular one and a common one is going to be inside of logistics, looking through into construction. The biggest problem with that mirror window is the hatch. It's the elephant in the room, you can't do anything about the hatch, and that's going to rely on any ADSs, any WAMIs, anything like that that you've got to try and keep control of that window.
A big extension, a huge amount of utility, including the Goyo, that's going to give them that width over towards CC. Leon's going to see if he can hold on to the top of red for as long as possible. But, again, it's an extension. It's a way to sort of play yourself across the face of this. And CYCLOPS, as we saw in the previous round, when they saw a hole in the site which they thought that they could push, they went for it. I'm curious to see if they decide to dedicate the same mentality here. They're going to instead try and push logistics and construction window, see if they can force those two Rogue Roam players to have to pull themselves back. Enough pressure will cause a boil. There's a setup there, and they're just prepping themselves ready for the breach as it's CYCLOPS sort of weighing up options.
I do find it kind of funny how they brought the mirror and there's actually no one playing on the windows at the moment. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like, yeah, these are really good positions. They can also be quite difficult to get back into, by the way. Yep. You know, you can often just be giving yourself somewhere to play. I'm going to be there for the entirety of the round. I'm sorry, I'm doing a job. Getting back there isn't always so straightforward, and losing aces to a nade, well, that's not going to be ideal. Great little opener there for CYCLOPS.
I don't think they expected to get the kill there. I think that they were just going for a bounce around onto the shield. I could be wrong, but that was an unfortunate time to rotate. By the looks of it, from the side of aces, he was just heading through as that grenade came to meet him face to face, and at that point it's a red indicator and a bit of an uh-oh. Now they're starting to flood their way through. Obviously the Roteros are doing some quick work with the shield, but they've still got to be able to actually break themselves into the site, and without the focus paid over to CC, they have the option to swing. There's also a player down in strip. There's a chance for Prano to potentially go for a run out or a loop down of a C4, but instead they're suddenly inside the site, so now it's just vertical. There's the C4 over the top. It is blown and does catch the diffuser carrier, but now Prano's got to try and fight his way back up to the top. Anaton should be able to get this recollected and get a plant down. They have this watch from either side of the stairs. A pre-fire gives the game away that we know where you are, and it's just seeing if you can fight your way out. The answer's no. 2-1 to CYCLOPS.
I always believe it's the hardest angle to challenge onto on the entire game. Trying to retake from those stairs as a defender when that breach is open and when you've got somebody in bedroom or logistics, it is now impossible. You can't be, you just can't do it. It very rarely happens. And Prano, I mean, the vertical was good. It was there for Rogue, but they just didn't have any site presence. Nope. That's right. Just balls straight into Jim, like no qualm, no problem, nothing stopping him from doing so. They did get lucky with the utility clear. It was a great focus. That's what you want to be using your nades for. You need to be removing the Goyo shields. Those are powerful positions that defenders can sit behind, and even worse, defenders can shoot those positions and really expose you if you do get in and get engulfed in a load of flames. So the fact that we saw that come through from CYCLOPS was fantastic. The Rotero drones were used exceptionally well, but it wasn't enough. There was just no hold onto the site. Everyone just sort of set up and then dipped.
This Monty, I believe, is playing more tricks for Rogue than maybe we entirely realize at this point. The sixth pick there. The swap out from both two teams, the Monty to the Ace, gives a very different play and approach, and the Tachanka, for me, is mainly for those flame grenades. It's a secondary backup to the smoke, and something, if you're aware of how we've watched that approach come from the Monty, it was buffed by the smoke canisters and are buffed by a way to stop it approaching. Leon could do that without control of CC in this role, and with that gun set, and buy them so much more precious time that they won't need to buy now. So I guess he's got to hope that there's other ways to utilize it, as I'm sure there is, because that's still the default plant. You can still sort of bounce those over the top of Cash into behind the server stack. If you know your lineups, then you'll line yourself up pretty well.
I think the big question here is, where does it free Cryan up to play? Because he played on Catwalk last time. If that's going to be occupied by Leon, now trying to stop the players from coming in, Cryan could be now taking up Rips' position maybe at the bottom of Oil Pit. Aces is still going to play downstairs at the top of Blue, at the top of Lounge, just in and around. In contrast to previous, the breach has been open very quickly here as well, which is already going to give, in my opinion, a bigger advantage to Cyclops than leaving it till later on into the round. The site is split. Rips is now in Cash. Prano is now at the top of those Cash stairs, and it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be able to trade between there and Garage.
Well, the Selmas start to pop, and if they remember their previous lineups, they'll know that the Monty isn't on the board because Ace, well, wasn't on before, or it could be a swap elsewhere, but it's the most likely because it's the game that they've been playing all game so far. Is he here? Is he not? I don't know. Neither did you. Cryan is deep on the roam. He has the chance to potentially swing his way up. As we said, the droning has been pretty good from Cyclops so far, and they did leave some in Oil Pit before, and that was how they were able to catch Rips, and it seems like they have an idea of Cryan's position, but as you said, it's just how well he's been able to play the surprise. Were they active when he passed by? Which direction? And do they truly have this taste? How long are they going to be hunting Cryan underneath?
There's going to be a couple of flank drones getting thrown out now as well. I think Cryan's probably playing this as well as he can. He just needs to find himself a rat corner downstairs to hide in all honesty, it doesn't sound pretty, it doesn't sound great, but that's what is going to be required. If he is going to get hunted, it could be at a later point in the round. The rest of Cyclops is really posturing at this moment. They're looking to take control of construction. Drones are starting to work in. Gatorada in hot pursuit. He's almost certainly been drawn there yet, as we can see. Cryan going to shoot the drone, just reposition it ever so slightly, but he isn't going to give up that ground. Still, there is a fight going on upstairs to be had now, as the breach will start to be open. This is where nades start to become a little bit of a problem, and Rips could find himself taken on out. The nade didn't sail, the drone will.
There it is.
Backup one does hit, and that's going to be a huge swing here. Second nade now coming in through B window. Gatorada maybe looks to make an approach in through Garage, who at this point could have a huge impact.
Well, the Tachanka is now just on the other side of that window. They're not quite aware, though, and Gatorada's a bit isolated. There it is, though. Leon gets one. The trade comes through. They're a bit concerned as the Banshee screams over the top, but red falls. Suddenly everything does, and it's just Cryan who made the creep up. Suzu C. He's going to see if he can get this stuck down inside the site itself. It's post-plant now, but not for very long. Maybe a sliver of a second, if it counts. But it's another one counted for CAG. 3-1.
Cyclops doing a really good job of keeping Rogue guessing. I think that Rogue are maybe getting in their own heads a little bit. You mentioned there with the Monty pick, that has to be playing on the back of your mind. When you've had Monty played so effectively, Anaton is notorious for playing the Monty. It's got to be something that you consider, because you know as soon as you stop considering it, it's going to come around and it's going to bite you again. So playing with that in the back of the mind, bringing things like the Tachanka for that area denial to try and keep control of Garage, and then just an entirely different push. Sure, we saw East Wall get open, but then there was a full rotation, and it was, yep, we're all going to dip, we're all going to get ourselves through Master, through Jacuzzi, through construction, and work on that construction side wall. The pressure below, fantastic. Black Ray with the up nade, the information that they were able to gather. Cyclops are putting on a little bit of a display here, and Rogue need to catch themselves quickly, because at the minute, they're kind of in free fall.
This is another new operator in the hands of Anaton, now bringing the Twitch.
Nothing he can't do.
He is the multi-tool. He is really just adapting to whatever I think he wants to at this point, what he thinks can be brought to be the difference maker here. And obviously, you look at the lineup on the side of Rogue, and they've still got the setup, as we said, and complemented. If there's anything to take care of a Monty, they had it. They still have it, and it can obviously still do other things. You're looking at Leon and Aces as a combination of those two operators can be a huge roam factor. I guess it's just whether we see the roam come through, because obviously last time Aces was on site to deal with the Monty. Is he going to start on site? Is he going to start elsewhere and wait for a potential call of the operator that was 6th pick? We can only see how this round develops.
Rips is playing Legion this time, so there could be an argument to say we could let Legion try and do that job. Initially, the pressure is going to be on Crying. Finds one, finds two. What is going on here? CAG, they've let 3 go to him. He didn't even have to move his feet. He's found himself a triple. That has to be the round at this point. We've not even seen 35 seconds.
I mean, it was 2, he changed guns and picked up the third. Yeah, that's a tragedy. That's a freebie. That's 3 players on a plate there for Crying to just absolutely sweep away. And as you said, sure, they've got 2 minutes and it's not over. But it's not a great start. There's no denying that. You've lost all of your utility. You've lost pretty much everything that could have been a driving factor. You still obviously have some of the verticalities and you still have some hard destruction, but I mean, you've still got 5 Rogue players to dig your way through, and they've got absolutely everything that they need. The grenade round onto the back of blue box isn't quite going to get the full catch onto Crying. It's a Thunderbird, so where they've got a bit of kit there to keep them going. I'm not too sure, but there will be one not far away, and you see him start to be picked back up.
Really, where do you go from here for CYCLOPS? They're going to attempt to dirt tunnel and push down blue. Got Suzu C, does have the diffusers, going to get choked out by Toxic Babe canisters, and they can be paced out quite nicely throughout the course of the rest of this round. Rips, of course, with the Legion Goo Mines as well, can look to try and do a bit to assist. Black Ray's moved up, he's been able to take control of blue, and he's now in and around Generator, but Crying knows pretty much exactly where he is. Black Ray conscious of a flank, but Rogue aren't going to give it up that easily. Rip's going to find himself 1 after the Goo Mine ping, and Suzu C just gives himself up after that. A flawless round for Rogue. And Crying, what a round. You can't teach that. 3 kills, 1 spot, right place, right time. You can forgive him for switching guns. I'll be honest with you.
I mean,
after 2 have flied in, do you really think a 3rd person is going to come? I don't. I'll be honest, I don't think that 3 people are going to go through. After 2 kills, switch your gun. Take a moment to breathe. You do whatever you want there. You basically won the round for your team.
Yeah, that was that moment that sometimes happens in CYCLOPS games where they suddenly just switch off. It is, if we're going to talk about how you're used to things with Rogue, CYCLOPS fans, CYCLOPS viewers are used to moments like that where they'll have all this brilliance, they'll have all this drive, but then they sort of switch off for a second and suddenly everything's out the window, or in the window 3 times in this case.
Through the window.
Right through.
The thing is, I think prior to that round, we've been praising CYCLOPS for playing this like incredible giga brain strategy of like, these guys are just playing mental arithmetic.
Yeah, they're like, they're over here, we're baiting it in, we can just push the site here, and
then they just pile in through a window.
They throw 3 people through a window and all of them get dropped.
It's the yin and the yang that is this team, I think, and well, maybe, just maybe, they can come away with a 4-2 split here. They were successful attacking this site, and I think that Rogue will be reluctant to go back here, because things just went from bad to worse very quickly. We commented at the time about the mirror windows. It looks as though those will remain, and they may as well, because we didn't really get to see them be used. The site was vacated by the defenders, and CYCLOPS got a couple of early advantages that they quickly snowballed into a round win.
Okay, CYCLOPS, Monty's back. Hey, if you're playing the gambit of Willy won't he, it's Willy. They've been able to see if he can be the 4-2 bringer here, and I guess will he be the driving force as he was before? If you're looking at how he can approach, sure. If they want to try and get it clear on the CC side, he can be that big entrance he did before. Gatorado with a quick swing round, and it seems like they are curious about the utility that's been placed on the other second side of the second story. But it's otherwise still the possibility of just hitting up Jacuzzi, hitting up that sort of wall, getting it open. It's a thermite. It seems like he's going to spread his way through and spread his wings. Has the diffuser in pocket, which isn't always seen from him when he's playing this role.
It's fairly choice, isn't it, to give you Monty your diffuser if they're going to go for a huge roam clear, but in the hands of Anaton, it could be worthwhile. A C4 from below maybe says otherwise. Rips has got some active information that he was able to feed through on a bulletproof, and while the C4 does the damage, it doesn't quite deal the finishing blow, but the floor will now be opened, and Monty can still be shot in the foot. Kills start to fly here for Rogue, as they're successful on the first 2 engagements.
Well, Anaton's able to get a little bit of health back, obviously, from the Finker boost, but with the damage that's been done elsewhere, Crying's found that new bout of confidence, and he's been able to lean into the firefights. He said you need to sort of lean into CYCLOPS. You need to try and meet them, see if you can put the pressure onto them, and, well, pressure has been put on. They've lost 2 bodies. They've lost their soft destruction. They've got to see if they can try and pick these pieces back up together and dedicate it into some sort of attack, and there's still everything left to go through. All the utilities still standing outside of one reinforced door, and Well, with a minute 10, it's got to be a quick plan B.
Things haven't gone Cyclops' way, and you mentioned there about having a plan. It seems to have stalled them quite significantly. Yes, they've lost the sledge. Yes, they've lost the Zephyr, but they've still got quite a lot of pushing power here. We can hear the exothermic charge going off as we anticipate that's going to be a push in, but realistically, who's there to back it up? Gatarada going to get himself onto the gym window. He's going to exchange shots there unbeknowingly, just trying to open up a couple of things to peek from, maybe even at a later point, but there isn't a lot left in the round, and with this split push coming in, it could just be a desperate attempt through logistics. The exterior wall into construction has been opened. You can, of course, hop through past that mirror window. The mirror window isn't great on that angle, realistically. Nades are going to start to fly, but I don't think they're going to see the same success here.
Leon sets himself up in a slightly new position as the shields start to be blown open. Prano's underneath, and that's the worry, because one more C4 and Anaton is entirely out the board. There's a hold, there's an angle, there's a wait. He's able to pass, and he's waiting for the call there. It's Rip Torn, but it's unfortunately a little bit late. 2-4 though. Anaton, he's able to take one with the pistol, goes for the second, can't quite make it work. Suzuki is all that's left. The diffuser is at the top of the stairs. It's an awkward firefight, and it's made even more awkward by dropping the round. 3-3, an even half, and Rogue closer and closer towards a full 3 points.
I would argue salvaged at points for Rogue. That wasn't as clean as we saw them play on Oregon. They've almost regressed a little bit into that lesser confident or less confident version of themselves. They aren't getting the same amount of kills that they were getting over on Oregon, and they've, for all accounts, had a pretty rough time on that defense. They've come out 3-3. They've really been able to scrape it together at the end, but it has taken all of that counterplay. It's taken all of those mind games. They've been baited into operator picks that turn out to be relatively useless. They've also read in really well into that Monty pick from time to time when it was brought. Equal split, 3-3. Now things get weird. We're going to bar and stage. This is not a sight that you get to see all too often.
It's not a sight that you get to see all too often. It's one of those things where it's new, and new is exciting. New is something new. You get to see ideas of how this stuff develops, and the only time you truly get the biggest taste of it is when you get the full stretch of international play. You get to see different ideas from different regions come together, because I could tell you how it's played in EU, and I could tell you roughly how it goes. But when regions butt heads is when Siege is by far at its most interesting, because Siege is a game of questions and creativity. What can we do, and how can we set it up to stop an onslaught onto these two sites? We have all these gadgets, all these folks, all this utility, -4. What can we piece together, and how do we grow from it?
Really isn't a very popular site, and see it trotted out here as a first pick speaks to maybe a level of trying to catch out Rogue. I'm sure that Rogue will be well aware of how they want to approach this, but I mean, just take a look at the site. It's entirely empty at the moment. Everybody is out and about trying to cause a nuisance for themselves. Leon could be in a prime position for a little bit of a hop-in. There's a bit of utility to get through, but for the meantime, the main approach is going to be in toward that stock. Leon's droning now, and if he calls this as clear, there's of course the rotating players to worry about, but we could see some of that quick play that we know Rogue capable of from Oregon.
Well, there's an idea of a little bit more opening, and the Super Shorty does some work to give you those wide angles from the kitchen side. It's a double-edged sword. Kitchen isn't the easiest to hold on to. Sure, if you want to have it for some modicum of time, you've got to make sure you get the verticality too, but at the same time, it's a couple of windows, a door, and a swing around, and you could probably get angles, pretty much everything apart from some corner of the meat locker. Rips is waiting for the escape as well, which does herald the idea that they want to try and force that player out, and if they can't win the fight on one side or push him with utility, they'll put bullets into him instead. Leon, in the meantime, goes for the wide swing. Sees if he can hope that someone's just holding the angle a little bit more statically, as Black Race seems to want to step up and offer some support here. It's so dangerous. Rips is lying in wait. Will he be able to tear off the first head that decides to dip itself over this no man's land? You assume a scrap is incoming, but through the chain link fence, it's not always the cleanest.
There's no one been in the site for the entirety of the round at this point. I'm surprised it's taken Leon to this point to hop himself in. He does, and Black Ray takes him down. Not sure if they knew of the alibi on the stairs. Prano now trying to get the plant down behind the B chassis. Where is the cover? Rips is, of course, watching that long angle, but Rips gets sat down in the dirt. That's 4 quick kills for Cyclops, and the diffuser now cold. A lot now lies in the hands of Crying, and well, 50 seconds, a cold diffuser inside of the site, and the defenders swarming onto him. This is only ever going to end one way.
I really liked that extension there. They just sort of opened all of the wall to that corridor. And if I'm going to say the way that we like to see this played in EU, that's not one of the things that you often see. It's more of a hold with a lot of like a sort of lockdown above, and you'll play against those angles in a sort of similar way, but that dedication towards kitchen and that stairs is not even really just a point of rotation, but a point of power and prominence to sort of say, we're stacked up here. As soon as you enter from lounge, or as soon as you hit that stage, the only thing that's going to be shining on you is off of my bullets.
I'd love to see the kill that was onto Rips, because Rips was playing the chain link fence, so he was playing on the rappel. Now, that isn't an easy angle to challenge onto.
No.
If you get slammed on that angle, you have been slammed.
Far back.
But I mean, maybe he needs to crank that up right and get into a position of good posture as we are back into the mix of things. Round number 8 and downstairs we go. Cyclops successful in the bar site on their first defense, looking to make it 2-1 after another, no doubt, and looking to edge a bit of a lead because this is their time. They need to come up with a result here on Clubhouse.
That's entirely it. It needs to be their moment. Obviously, as we said before, we'll very quickly say it, it's a best-of-3 series, but if you get a 2-0, you get 3 points. If you just get a 2-1 victory and drop a map, you only get 2, and the team that took 1 map get 1 point. So at this point, Cyclops are only playing for a potential 2 points, but it's better than none. And even then, they're still technically playing for potential of 1 point, and they're importantly paying to take one away from Rogue, a team that lost all 3 yesterday in a showdown. If there is a team that they need to keep within arm's reach, this is probably one of them. Gator suffers quite early on the spray through, and it's just going to retreat down into blue as Rips decides to see if he can drive round. I think they wanted to set up a pinch, push and pull some of these roaming players away and force them into uncomfortable situations, but Rips wasn't quite in a position to punish the rotation back into the site just yet.
Slow start from Rogue as plenty of drone work needs to happen here to gather just exactly where everybody is going to be playing. Anderson still on that top floor as hatches do start to get opened. Ella, not the typical roamer that she once was. We typically more see a Vigil in that sort of role, or maybe something like a Mozzie to try and deny a little bit more of that utility. Crying just gets caught out there by the stun, by the Grismot. Anderson in position to try and challenge onto it, but nobody really giving themselves up just yet. The vertical holes that Anatom has got now to work with as well are of course going to assist. Any push that comes through is going to be quickly thwarted.
Oh, that drone is getting so much of a read on those 2 players. They suffered quite heavily to a grenade and was finished off by the next. There is still 1 more player there. They are well aware of this, and well, they're well aware of this. Ace is able to clear that up from underneath, now puts the pressure onto the hatch itself. They drop behind the 3rd box to see if they can try and pinch it against. Takes the fight and wins it, goes for 1 more. Reveal, but at that point, Black Ray is doing a bit of work on the other side. Prano's going to see if he can stick with the man advantage. Leon Gitch shows how that rectangle is done. The rappel locks in, but the round is won before it begins. There it is. 4-4, it's back and forth.
I enjoy Leon getting on to chain link rappel this time and it being like, that's how it's done.
That's how it's done.
That's how it's done, Rips. That's how you do it. You go upside down instead of being right ways up. It's a round that was desperately needed by Rogue. Great clear. The drone, you mentioned it at the time, provided so much information, and it was just something that went entirely unchecked. I mentioned at the time that Ella isn't the typical roamer. An advantage of bringing Vigil is that if you are going to keep an eye on your scoreboard and your points, if you activate your cloak and you look at the scoreboard and your points go up, you will see that you have been captured by a drone. You have been detected on drone. It's a great little method for seeing if there's a drone in the vicinity, and it can just give you a little bit more chance to search a bit more thoroughly, because a drone under a desk, as proved there, can be devastating. Aces with the hot drop in through the site as well. All of it worked together exceptionally well, and it was all enough for CYCLOPS to say, you know what, we ain't going there again. We're in fact going to go upstairs to gym and bedroom.
You don't always lock that hatch there, and you don't always put a shield on it as well, but to be fair, if you want to put a shield anywhere, locked onto the hatch inside gym is probably the best place, because sometimes you do see players playing behind the chassis regardless of the state of that hatch or not, and I guess it just gives them a little bit more width, because the chassis is the only real solid thing in that room apart from a weight set, but it's got a lot of holes in it, so it doesn't really make it easy or convenient to keep yourself a bit safe inside there. Having a little bit more of a mantle of safety in a very small space, it might work. But then you look at what's on the side of Rogue, it's Rips holding on to those Rotero drones. It is something where if they can find a gap in those mute jammers, they can very quickly turn that room once again back into a pretty deadly hellhole.
Toronto going to get the wall open there into construction and rotate himself around, no doubt eyes firmly fixed on checking out Jacuzzi wall and what needs to be done in there. Frost being brought this time, Black Ray. Gives him a shield to play from. Shields, of course, very important. If you're not going to be bringing the Goyo, you need to find them from somewhere, as the whole defense sort of hinges around making sure that those shields are available. Anderson, a little bit thoroughly looking for the drones this time as opposed to last, and he really doesn't want to suffer to the same fate. The Rotero drones now are going to start to make their way through, but with mute jammers, it's a cautious run to just make sure that you don't get caught by the window. Instead, just throw yourself off the balcony. I mean, get rid of the drone and get rid of Black Ray. Leon is able to try and take that first fight successfully. Obviously, he had his drone and the intel come through there, and well, that's one gone, and he didn't even need to enter the building. There's suddenly a lot of pressure coming through on the next, and there it is, dropped from the heavens and sent to hell all the way across the bedroom. The spray comes through. It's Gatorado with a double locked in, and suddenly it's a 3 versus 1. He's massively injured underneath. We saw this exact same sort of scenario before, but Rogue was on the wrong end of it this time. They have the diffuser, they have safety, and they have so many places that they can try and stick this. Gatorado went for a rotate much earlier, took a safer staircase and one with a lot more to work with, but they know his position. They're either side, and they don't really need to extend into this. He's injured. He's covered, and they still have 2 Roteros. If they really wanted to, they could go outside and just drive those dangerous devices onto the plant and just sort of leave it, let it tick down, but it's a less fun way for this to end. There's drones still sort of revealing positions, but Gatorado, yeah, I think he's come to terms with this round. It's probably quite wise. It's only going to end one way, and that's with Rogue getting the round. I think one of the more impressive things, when you start to see such an advantage for a team and you know that there's a Frost that's been played, you just start to worry how many players are going to fall into Frost mats. I was thinking in my head throughout that whole thing, I was like, I wonder if anyone's going to get caught in a Frost mat here. Fortunately, it did not happen, fortunately at least for Rogue. They were able to keep an eagle eye out, and look at them, they're not leaving anything to chance. This is very well-disciplined siege that they are playing. 3 versus 1, and they still do not push. Barely any time left on the diffuser. They don't care. They just want the round win. They are willing to sit and hold the angles despite that huge advantage that they've got, because they know all you need in this game is a gun and a second, and you can make something happen.
Every site is open, but gym is where they think they can make things connect. They're going to see if they can double down. The change comes in the hands of a bandit. Okay, that's also not massively common scene. Usually it's sometimes with a castle, but that's not how they want to play it. I'm really curious to see where the dedication of this bandit comes through, because to be honest, the first push and failure was on the side of... it was on the side of construction. It was a window and a hatch that led to the opening kills. A bandit can't stop that. So what do they think is going to be the difference here? As I said, traditionally, where Gatorado is right now in Jacuzzi, that's where the bandit plays. But to do that without a castle, without that separation on the door, I mean, it's dangerous. Not impossible, but it's dangerous.
I'm confused in a couple of ways. Hatch being reinforced in gym for 1 is a little bit strange, a little bit weird.
They did it last time as well.
Yeah, if you're going to be bringing the C4s, you can kind of use that as a little bit of, you know, do you want to come into gym? Like, it's quite cool in here, but we're going to C4 you from below. And that's something that you often see being deployed. The pressure now that you put on yourself with playing the bandit is you've just got to keep control of CCTV and cache. You've got no option. You have to have that as an area that is within your control. And typically that's kind of a first port of call for a lot of attackers in terms of where they're going to mount their attack. demonstrated already. Crying, look at him. He's already on catwalk.
That's it. It's 20 seconds, and he's putting pressure now onto CC. He's creeping through, and there's a bit of fire that's coming back, but at the same time, that's so quick. And now it sort of just negates a lot of the potential that maybe could have played in a buffer. It's just Anaton here. But you look at what's hard and what's soft on this. Prano's going to crack the only hard bit of this hold. They have a rotation. And Anaton's going to be able to get out of there. But look, it's an angle straight through. And well, he slips away. And you just sort of wonder what the game was there. What was the setup? Has this worked? Will time tell? I'd say tune in for next week. But it seems like the pressure's going to keep on coming. Forced all the way back to site.
Strange to not hold Cash and CCTV as hard as, hard at all. They've deployed two reinforcements there. That's it. They haven't mute jammered. They've not done anything to really hold there for a significant period of time. And it's just giving it away to Rogue quite easily. Now they can let the drones work through. We are going to see a kill come in from Anaton as Leon tries to advance his way onto that logistics hatch, but that isn't going to be something that happens. It's going to force the rotate. It leaves Aces a little bit more exposed because now Crime needs to fill that gap, inside of logistics, because there's still a player to be dealt with there.
Yeah, I mean, that body was just the swing on the fight, and that was the take that came through. There's the first grenade gone, the second should be able to pop through, then bounces it out and gets one. There's a replacement though, Galarada. I mean, I cannot believe it worked. It worked, and that is, for me, a bit of a shocking revelation.
I'm not quite sure what Rips is doing at the moment, because he is a really key part in this entire puzzle. If he was holding on to the gym window, you've got Suzy C there playing the shield. Get a Rotero drone in, destroy the shield, do something to try and disrupt that. There's going to be mute jammers, there's going to be obstacles, but you've got to try and assist. Say that, he's going to get C4'd straight away out of action. Aces, it's going to be down to you, Crying and Prano, to come up with something here. It's an even 3 versus 3, and if CAG keep giving themselves away at the windows, it could be easier than you think.
I mean, that's it, is moments of madness sort of came into their favor, but now they can't quite seem to find a happy place to sit, and Rogue have been able to get themselves back to a body balance of everything sort of going wrong on the opposite side. Suddenly they've got 15 seconds to see if they can keep it right, just the way to the end. Prano dives in, gets one, and is probably going to start trying to get the diffuser down. It's Black Ray over the side on the back line, gets one, gets two, and now with a handful of seconds, no! Prano just has that last bit of security, pushes Rogue onto series
Bandit tricks, man, like, please! That's it was hard to watch, especially given the circumstances. They come away with the round. It doesn't matter. Is there something they could have done to combat it? Sure. Did they absolutely need to? Well, maybe not, but it's a round that they got nonetheless. They've got 2 opportunities now at a full 3 points. After their performance yesterday, that is huge, and they need it desperately. CYCLOPS, on the other hand, looking a little bit down and out, staring down the barrel of a 7-4-7-4.
Who had that? Who had that result? Oh, it was Rogue yesterday. And I think that's the thing here is, if you're unaware, in the groups, only one team doesn't make it out of groups. The successful teams, they're split between the upper and lower bracket. And lower bracket, obviously, they only have one and done. And it's a lot of teams left to fight for that spot. So there's still always positioning, but still, only one team to not make it out of the group stage is kind of terrifying. Because, if you're one of 2, you understand every game matters as much. But it does in that weird other way where a best of 3 is a slower build to that unfortunate end of, I guess, auto-relegation.
You don't want to be the one, do you?
Exactly.
No, but someone's got to be the one in every single group. And that's kind of the heart-wrenching thing about it all. Now, will Rogue have learnt lessons from previous? They went for a very late but direct push into the site when they attacked here in round number 7. It didn't work out too well for them. There was a presence in kitchen that they weren't aware of. There was a presence at the bottom of main stairs that they were equally unaware of. And they just kind of let themselves get collapsed on. Already we're seeing a bit of a different approach. There's some attention being paid upstairs to try and assist a little bit more of a fuller clear.
They're going to see if they can get a handle on these players, and I think that's one of the big drives of this team. And as we said before, usually in EU you'll see a steadier hold up above. There was that width down below. I quite liked the idea of in kitchen, but those plays aren't always the most successive thing, and here, Aces wants to get right above that. He was eyeing up the taste of logistics, but there's not an intense drive to finish it off because there's been a bit of adaptation here. It seems like a lot of bodies of Cyclops are actually going for the precious retake above. They want to see if they can put the pressure here onto the swing round. The pre-fire comes through, they've got the connection on the stairs, and then they pull back, give them food for thought. And they've left one player above, but the difference in control they have now, remember when those 4 kills flooded through in a second? Well, only one is in a position for a firefight. All the pre-fires that gun can offer does nothing if they come from the opposite side, and Prano takes care of one, doesn't quite get the revenge, was waiting for the ping of the player above. Pops way too early.
A C4 that will swing and miss. It still provides an angle to peek from, but is it going to be enough? Rogue in a good spot now after removing that pressure upstairs. Now let's try and work on the hatch and see if they can eye themselves up a plant here. There's still a heavy consideration that needs to be paid toward a retake. Aces, he's going to be pushing up from the bottom of the stairs. He sees somebody inside of the showers, gets himself in the skirmish, but it's going to be Crying that's got his back. Susie C finds himself downed in process, and with Black Ray pretty low, it puts a lot of pressure on a full health Anatom to try and hold on here inside of 30. Leon holding on to the main door, looks to try and push himself through. There's potential for a revive, but the plant's going down.
Plant's going down, 2 versus 5, and suddenly 45 seconds is all there is, and just one player to try and do it. Black Ray, no health, can't do anything to lock it off, and a flawless is how Rogue have responded to their day yesterday. 4-7-7-4s, and even 0 is the round difference after 2 days of play, but you know what the most precious thing is, and it ties into the conversation we had before. One team gets eliminated, the rest of this group, Liquid